Condition is immediately.
Hard to imagine it was reality. Still to this day, in so many ways, it still feels like a dream.
John Lennon's first son, Julian, was in Liverpool when he got the news.
I came downstairs, all the curtains were closed, found out what had happened, and then, of course, when Mum arrived, we were in bits.
He immediately flew to New York.
Every person on that plane had the newspaper of Dad's, picture of John Lennon slain, murdered, and that was a toughie.
He went right to the Dakota for a tearful reunion with his 5-year-old brother Sean.
You had a sense of responsibility, of duty as a big brother?
Well, yeah. Reminded me of something.
What did it remind you?
Well, my life. We were of similar age when he left us. I mean, the first time round that it happened to me, at least, he didn't pass away, but this was, going to be tough on a little boy that had a great deal of love coming from his father.
From the time the news broke of Lennon's death, New Yorkers began streaming to the Dakota apartment.
As family came to the Dakota to mourn Lennon's murder, so did thousands of fans.
It was actually kind of difficult for Yoko and Sean because they were a few floors up in their apartment, and just hearing the songs all night, and in one sense it was a tribute, in the other sense it was very painful.
Close friend Bob Gruen was at the Dakota.
Yoko was in bed for quite a while. She couldn't really function very much.
Remarkably, in the midst of her grief, Yoko Ono went back into the studio.
What really compelled her to get out of bed, to get out of the Dakota, go down and finish this record?
To let John Lennon's last work not be completed wouldn't be right. I think she wanted to finish it. But that doesn't mean it wasn't very painful and very difficult to go on.
As one wife mourned her dead husband, another apologized for hers.
Being a Beatles fan, I mourn the death of John Lennon and feel great sadness for his wife Yoko and his son Sean.
Gloria Chapman spoke for the first and only time on camera, December 10, 1980, at a press conference in Honolulu. Her answer to one question shocked many people.
Yes, very much.
She later reflected on the days right after the murder.
For I guess the first few weeks I was just in a dream kind of thing. I mean, it just didn't seem real, thinking, he's gonna come back.
Of course, Chapman would never come back. He was charged with second-degree murder. For months after the shooting, dozens of psychiatrists tried to get inside his head as Chapman's legal team strategized.
They were trying to mount an insanity defense. This was a guy who had decided that he would rather spend the rest of his life in prison than one more day in obscurity. That sounds pretty insane to me.
So is that why he killed Lennon? He wanted to be famous?
I think that was part of it, that he wanted the power of fame behind his life.
It was important to me to have that identity, I guess. I called upon the chief demons to give me strength to do this, because I knew I couldn't do it on my own. I said, if you'll give me the power to do this, give me the fame and the recognition, and I'll do this for you.
His lawyers were convinced a jury would agree he was insane at the time of the murder. Chapman ignored them.
I've had touches of schizophrenia and paranoia, no question about it, but I don't think I was under control of that when I shot Lennon.
Against his attorney's advice, Chapman pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 20 years to life. His new home, Attica Prison, outside Buffalo, New York. For now, Chapman remains in solitary confinement. Gloria, still his wife, flies in from Hawaii for yearly conjugal visits. Despite Chapman's claims to have found God and lost the demons that drove him to kill Lennon, he's been denied parole 6 times. Yoko Ono still lives at the Dakota, every day walking past the place where her husband was shot.
Life goes on, and Yoko is a source of strength for all of us to go on, to continue with our lives, and to not just stop and fall apart.
Something son Julian has tried to do, despite never knowing what could have been.
He obviously was trying to reach out later in life, no question about it. And he knew that, I still was longing for that relationship with them.
Do you feel cheated that you were denied that opportunity?
Of course I do. I mean, no question about it. It's beyond sadness that he's not around, obviously, but there's nothing anybody can do about that. So one just takes the love that you've had with that person and that you remember and the fondness that you have of that person, and you just carry that forward.
A love and a life still remembered, still celebrated, still echoed in the poignant final words of John Lennon on the last day of his life.
I consider that my work won't be finished until I'm dead and buried, and I hope that's a long, long time.